Hello, hi everyone. Hi to our plant-based performance running community and everybody on YouTube as well. Welcome to another episode of Plant-Based Running Tip Tuesdays with myself, Coach Kayla. And today we're going to be talking about special nutrition considerations for female plant-based runners. So this week I really focused on talking to those that are females. Because I believe as a female, and obviously I am a female as well, we have, certain characteristics or certain, things that are maybe different than men. And so I've really devoted this week to talking about female runners because I have a guest this week talking about pregnancy and running. And that's something I haven't personally experienced yet. I might one day, so I'm certainly interested in it. And I know a lot of you in my audience have those concerns, and especially too as somebody that is plant-based or vegan, that may be something that you're interested in wanting to learn about. How do I make sure I'm giving my baby or the best nutrition nutrition to that baby and when it's born. So anyways, that's why I decided to really talk about females this week. And I wanted to take this time during our plant-based tip Tuesday to talk about special nutrition considerations for plant-based female runners. So here we go. We'll get into it here. I do apologize for being a little late. I was actually learning about women and investing. So I wanted to hop on that webinar. I went a little late, but I do apologize, but thank you guys for still being here. If you're on with me live, before we get started, if you're on with me live, if you could just comment below and say, hey, tell me where you're from. Click that link above to allow StreamYard to show your name, or just comment below with your name so I know who it is and I know who is watching and interested in this topic. Because if I know more people are interested in a certain topic, I can talk more about it. We can do more things I can put more content out, create guide, whatever it is to help you. As always, I'm here to help you guys. So I need to know what you guys want or what you guys are interested in. So I'm always welcome for feedback or suggestions for topics. So with that said, let's get into it tonight. Hi, Pam. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad you could still join us. I know I changed the time pretty last minute there, but I forgot about my webinar tonight. All right, so let's get into it. So special nutrition considerations for plant-based runners. There's 4 nutrients that I want to focus on talking about tonight. It's iron, calcium, zinc, and magnesium. These are all really important nutrients for anybody that's obviously plant-based to make sure we're getting into it or we're getting these nutrients. But I'll talk about and explain how these are specific nutrients that are specifically important for plant-based or for females, because these are nutrients that are harder for us to get and we may have higher needs because we're plant-based and also because we're female and because we're athletes. So that's why I want to focus on these 4 nutrients. Oh, you're not late at all. I'm not sure who that is, but if that's Pam, you're not late at all. I've actually just started. So you were right on time. I actually started a little late. So you are good. All right. So iron, let's start with the iron. So what iron does, I'll explain, each of these nutrients just so you guys have some background of why these nutrients are important, why we need them. I'll talk about, how much we need. And if we have, the increased amount or needs that we may need, and why this is specifically important for female plant-based runners. So iron transports oxygen throughout our blood. As premenopausal female athletes, we may be at a greater risk of deficiency due to the loss of blood, but also iron is very common whether you're plant-based or not in specifically premenopausal female athletes. So it's definitely a very common deficiency. I know a lot of female plant-based runners are told to go on iron supplements because their iron is so low. So, and that is because there's a greater need, and we just have a harder time absorbing or holding on to that iron because we are losing it more often, rather than our male counterparts. So we do have increased needs, because it's harder to hang on to that iron. So the general recommendation for women is 18 milligrams a day. Now, this could be 20 plus or more milligrams a day for female plant-based athletes. And again, this is premenopausal, so it could be different too if you're menopausal or have achieved menopause and aren't having a menstrual cycle. But it could, so if you are in that premenopausal stage and you are very active, you could need 20 or more milligrams a day of iron, which is more than the recommended amount for the general person. So that's important to make sure you're getting enough iron. And also ways you can do this, a really good way, especially if you're plant-based, is using a cast iron skillet. You can actually get iron that way by cooking food in iron. That is a very good way. And also making sure that any plant-based iron-rich foods like beans, spinach, leafy greens, those sort of things, if you're eating those foods, make sure to pair it with vitamin C. That also helps increase the absorption. Another tip that I always like to share as well with iron, if you have struggle getting enough iron, is not vitamin C. Talk about vitamin C. Green tea, eliminating, or even just tea in general, limit the amount of tea that you're drinking, because actually tea has called tannins in tea, and those are what actually inhibit the absorption of iron. So if you are struggling to have iron, decent iron levels, that could be another tip. Another thing with the iron I want to throw out there as well is those that have actually gone plant-based and have gone 100% plant-based and had iron issues before, they have actually gone away. And we've actually seen this in the athletic population, which is really cool. I'm a good example of this. I know Mary, I don't know if anyone knows her. She's a plant-based ultra runner. She is also, I believe, in the plant-based athlete book. She was interviewed and she talks about that same experience, her iron actually being better is being plant-based. So that is pretty cool. But it is important in making sure that we just know that we do have increased needs, and we do want to make sure we're getting enough iron and doing everything we can possibly do to absorb that iron. Number 2 is calcium. So why is calcium important? Well, bone health, right? We all know calcium is important for our bones, but also muscle and nerve function. But also specifically, as runners, it is a bone strengthening activity, which can strengthen our bones, but it can also be really hard on our bones, right? All the pounding that we do, especially if we are road runners, then we are pounding a lot on pavement. So we need to make sure our bones are strong. Female athletes are actually greater risk of deficiency if they don't have a period or they have a low body weight. So we want to make sure we're getting enough calcium. So the recommended amount is around 1,000 milligrams, I believe, in general. It could be you may need up to 1,500 milligrams a day. So you may need actually more calcium. So it's important to make sure you're eating plant-based foods that have calcium. We generally know foods with calcium are dairy, but just because I tell you this, that you need to be getting more calcium, doesn't necessarily mean you need to go back to drinking dairy. I still believe that even though this is the case, that dairy still has more negative consequences of it and it's just not worth it, or I don't feel like it's enough evidence to recommend to eat dairy just for calcium because of those other negative consequences that dairy has. So there are foods that we can, eat to get some calcium, leafy greens oranges actually have some calcium. So there are plant-based foods that have calcium. Some foods are fortified with calcium. Check out your milk and see how much, your plant-based milk, and see how much calcium that has. They can vary the type of plant-based milk, so that's something to be aware of. Just look at those food labels and see what one has more calcium. I always try to get a plant-based milk that actually says right on there that it's fortified with calcium, just to make sure I'm getting calcium that way as well. Okay. Number 3 is zinc. So zinc is necessary for immunity and nutrient metabolism, and is more challenging to get when you're eating plant-based. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, it's a little bit harder to make sure you're eating enough zinc. So that's why we're at increased risk of getting enough zinc as females. And as an athlete, zinc is also very important that we make sure we're getting, because we want to make sure that we have a strong immune system. So when we're putting our bodies under any physical activity, we're putting our bodies under stress. So we want to keep those immune system as high or good as we possibly can. And how we do that is through our diets. So the amount that's recommended is 8 milligrams a day of zinc. One really important thing to remember with zinc is that iron actually decreases the absorption. So if you're trying to get more iron, that means you may be at greater risk of having low zinc. So we really want to make sure that these two are balanced. And sometimes we have to choose what one is most important, right? Sometimes we have to kind of decide, right? What is better? And then foods that have zinc. So plant-based foods with zinc, those would be our nuts. So our cashews, let's see, our peanuts, I believe, legumes, yeah, our seeds and our nuts mostly are good sources of zinc. And then we have magnesium. So magnesium is an electrolyte. You may find magnesium in some of your electrolyte mixes or like drink mixes that you use. You have magnesium. So magnesium is important for nerve production, energy production, and preventing cramps. When anyone comes to me and tells me that they've had cramps during their races, most likely I contribute that to electrolyte imbalance. And it can be potassium, and other times it can be magnesium. And for some reason, as females, it's just a more common deficiency, or we're just not getting enough of it for some reason. So what's recommended for females is 300 to 350 milligrams a day. There is an upper limit, so we don't want to overdo it on magnesium, and that's 500 to 800 milligrams a day is the upper limit. So it's always important with any of these nutrients to really understand as well if there are any upper limits. There are certain nutrients that are like our water-soluble vitamins that are okay, don't really have an upper limit, but most of our other nutrients do. So just be aware of that, because you can get too much if you are supplementing. And that's also another reason why I always promote food first. Our bodies absorb nutrients better from foods. Our supplements are also not regulated, so we may not really know what's actually in them, or what they say is in them could not actually be what is actually in them that you're taking, is one. But also another reason too is just to really make sure that you're not overdoing it, and it's easy to do that if you're supplementing. That is possible. So that's just another thing to remember as well. And foods with magnesium, chocolate. Chocolate has magnesium, believe it or not. So that's what I always mention, because I feel like as women, we're always a lot of us crave chocolate. So magnesium actually does have chocolate. And And what else has chocolate? Seeds, again, are green leafy greens. Most of all these nutrients honestly have uh, in leafy greens in them, which I always try to have, my serving of leafy greens every day. So also magnesium is in pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, peanuts. Those also have magnesium as well. So those are great sources. So I know a lot of people really try to avoid these like our nuts and our seeds because they're so afraid of the calories. But I really hope this shows you of just another reason of why it's important to eat those healthy fats, and why I encourage people to eat nuts and seeds and those sort of things. For one, I think that could be a really good point as well is, most of us may not be eating enough. And a really good, easy way to do that, because fats have more calories per gram, is by eating more nuts and seeds. And then also, it's important as women that we do have enough fats for our hormones to work correctly. So that's another reason. And then most of these nutrients that I'm talking about are in leafy greens, as well as nuts and seeds are healthy fats. So nuts are healthy and something we should be including in our diets. And just because they do have higher calories, don't be afraid to eat those nuts and seeds. So that is my talk for today and message to all of you. So with that, does anybody that is on live, does anyone have any questions? Now, if you guys watch this also later on, you can also comment those questions below, or you're welcome to reach out to me as well if you do have any questions. Okay, doesn't look like there's any questions. So just to wrap it up as well, if you guys haven't heard, make sure to get in the plant-based performance running community membership community. So if you are part of this Facebook group, we are going to keep this open. I don't want to close this down just yet, but I am encouraging people to get over to that membership community, and we're going to just have a lot more value, a lot more content, a lot more for you guys, and you'll get access to all the master classes and workshops that I do, any mini courses or anything like that. I'll be developing, putting that in there in your library to have any guides, things like that. You guys will have access to that. So you're going to have a ton of content in there. So it's going to be amazing. And I want you guys to get in there. I want you to be a part of this community where I can help you more. And if this is getting a lot of inquiries and questions about this membership, and I do want to make clear, this is not coaching. It is just a membership community. So if you want coaching, I have my coaching. I still have my one-on-one coaching services as well as group coaching, but this is an option for those that maybe aren't quite ready to invest in that one-on-one coaching or group coaching program. This is a great way to just learn more about plant-based performance nutrition, really learn what other people are doing in addition, just a little bit in addition to what we're doing in this free plant-based community. And hopefully, if you feel like you're not getting on Facebook enough or you're missing these lives, what my really goal is, and kind of reason why I wanted to move this over to that paid community off Facebook, is that you will show up a little bit more. So because you're paying something into it, most likely you will show up a little bit more and you'll get more out of it. So you will get more help. But of course, for some people, they feel like they still do show up. And that's why some people honestly do, pay me more, because they want to be kept accountable. And the only way they're going to do that is if they put something forward. And just the way we do that is by money, because that's what we pay attention to, is the things we pay for. So with that, thank you guys so much for joining. And I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Sue. Thank you for joining. And if you guys do have any questions at all, of course, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can, message me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. And you can also find me on the podcast as well. So thank you guys, and we will talk to you soon. Talk to you next week. Bye.